Hey everybody, it's your Peacekeeper coming at you with the next video in our How to Play series on the Royal Navy cruiser line. This is the Tier 10 Minotaur class of cruiser. The Minotaurs are paper ships, so none of these were actually built, and the design for it comes from the same exact design study that brought us the Neptune class of cruiser. That's the 1944 light cruiser design study by the British. The official design designation is the Z4A, and it borrows heavily on the ideas from the Worcester class cruisers built by the U.S. Navy in the late 1940s. The design was to be roughly 15,000 tons, and the biggest change from the Neptune design study was that the gun layout was going to be different. The gun mounts were designed to be dual-purpose guns from the get-go, with an automatic feeding system akin to what we see on the Des Moines and the Worcester-class cruisers in the United States. While none of these were built, the turret design, hull design, and superstructure design would either heavily influence or be directly used in the construction of the Tiger-class cruisers, which they were canceled in the late 1940s and then were rebuilt into the 1950s and did serve with the Royal Navy. Like I said, none of these ships were actually built, so we don't have any service history to really talk about, but their in-game performance is quite notable in a number of different ways. The rate of fire is insane. With the reload module, it's 2.8 seconds per shot. It's unbelievably quick. The guns also rotate very quickly for any cruiser, for even a destroyer. Their 180-degree turn time is a really rather quick 5.3 seconds. The ships are also highly maneuverable with a very good rudder shift time, especially with the double rudder shift module, and they do have very good torpedoes and torpedo arcs. Again, having the same exact torpedo layout as the preceding Neptune with the 16 torpedoes, 8 per side. The anti-aircraft battery is absolutely murderous, as I'm sure you guys can imagine. Having those 6-inch guns working as dual-purpose mounts gives you a lot of long-range AA, which just makes the guns, even without defensive fire, very, very capable. The only real downsides to this ship, in my opinion, is that it is incredibly soft. And that is due in large part to the 16mm front bow plating. That's not enough to really stop anything aside from cruiser AP. Battleship AP will go clean through that with relative ease, and you do have a really rather large citadel, but that's nothing new for the Royal Navy cruiser line. The ability to heal back all that damage, though, as with the Edinburgh and Neptune, was the addition of that super heal, which just it kind of compensates and band-aids the problem, but it doesn't really solve it. That said, this ship is, in general, one of the best cruiser killers and destroyer killers in the game, especially when it comes to close-in engagements with enemy cruisers. In the battle video, we're going to see me get into a fight with a nearly full health Zhao, while I am nowhere near full health, and it does not end well for that Zhao. But I really do enjoy this ship a lot, so let's dive into those stats. In terms of hit points, she has 43,300 hit points. Her armor is only 101 millimeters at the belt. Not a whole lot of belt armor there, but certainly enough to bounce shells if we get angled correctly. She also does have a TDS value of 13%. I don't really see that as being all that impressive. For a cruiser, it certainly isn't. For a battleship, it definitely isn't. The main battery consists of 10 6-inch guns. They are mounted in 5 dual turrets. You have 3 fore and 2 aft. They have a firing range of 15.8 kilometers. Also of interesting note, there is no secondary armament on the Minotaur. This is definitely different than the other Royal Navy cruiser line, which actually had secondaries that you could kind of sort of rely on to start fires. You do not get that with the Minotaur. Of course, the 2.8 second reload of the main guns more than makes up for the lack of having secondaries. In terms of torpedoes, we've already talked about this. There are 16 of them in total. You have 8 per side in quad launchers. They have a range of 10.0 kilometers, 62 knots speed, and a detection range of 1.3 kilometers. they do 16,767 damage apiece. So they do hit very hard, they're very hard to see, and they do move very quickly. Absolutely a bonus to this ship. In terms of anti-aircraft, it starts off at the short range with 10 dual 20mm Oerlikons. It bumps up to 16 of the 3-inch gun mounts. These are in dual mounts. There are 8 total of them on the ship, 4 per side. The main battery also serves as the anti-aircraft gun suite, and that gun range comes out at 7.2 kilometers. Now, keep in mind, this Minotaur is not spec'd for AA, so this range will actually go up higher than this if you fully spec it for AA. This ship is not, so 7.2 kilometers is where it ends up being. Those 3-inch guns kick in at 6, and the Oerlikons only kick in at 2.4, but they don't add a whole lot to it. The real AA values come from your 3-inch and 6-inch gun batteries. Your max speed is 33.5 knots with a 660 meter turning circle radius and a rudder shift time of 5 seconds. Now that's going to be with both rudder modules. That's important to keep in mind. The concealment is 9.8 kilometers by sea and 8 kilometers by air. Again, we are ignoring the concealment module, which would drop that down to right around 9 kilometers if we were to give up our rudder shift time. Let's talk about those modules. Main armaments mod 1, aiming systems mod 1, and in this slot we are taking main battery mod 3 again, although like I've said before in the past, if you want to spec the ship for AA, certainly instead of aiming systems mod 1, you can get AA guns mod 2 and AA guns mod 3 instead of main battery mod 3. In this case, the 180 degree turn time of your turrets really isn't that impacted by the 13% increase in traverse speed because the guns just turn that quick. It is insane how quick these things turn. Propulsion systems mod 1 for the reduction in the engines getting incapacitated as well as reducing how long it takes to bring them back. And then steering gears mod 2 and steering gears mod 3 for the reduction in rudder shift time to get us that 5-second rudder shift time, which takes this ship and basically turns it into a very large destroyer with the Citadel. Although it doesn't play like one, even though you've got smoke and torpedoes, and yes, technically you can stealth torpedoes, I just don't see it playing that much like a destroyer, but it does have some very destroyer-like gameplay qualities. Rather than me blabbing about it, let's just go ahead and dive on into that battle video. Alright, so obviously this battle is going to be a tier 10 fight because we are in a tier 10 Minotaur, but this battle does not have a carrier in it, and so I'm sure it'll be labeled as being biased. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, this video isn't the best game that I had in this. It's only about 105,000 damage, but what I really wanted to show with this video is just how capable and versatile the ship is up close. One of the big advantages to the Royal Navy cruiser line is that even though these ships have next to no armor, at close range it's very difficult to just outright delete them. And in this battle, we're going to get into a fight with a Zhao. As I said in the first part of this, he ends up having more hit points than I thought he did. Less hit points than I thought he did. He's just over a half, which is about where I was at. So it was a pretty comparable fight. Obviously, being tier 10 fight with cruisers, Zhao is generally considered to be the better overall cruiser. Although the Minotaur certainly isn't lacking. It just happens to be that because of the cyclone that ends up happening in this, we end up having our engagement at a very close range, which is where he's at the biggest disadvantage, where I'm at the biggest advantage. And to start off, this is Shatter. This map is always a bit of a cluster when it comes to figuring out what teams are going to do. I've seen teams completely crash AB, crash CB, crash AC. Really, there's no viable way to consistently perform well on this map. Me personally, I'm going to go to C. I'm going to try and contest C. I've got a giant island there that will help keep, incoming fire minimized, and I can kind of ambush some ships that come around. Now, if you look there, you saw that there was a lot of I was traversing the mountains, and there was a lot of speed to how quick those things turn. You're going to see that a lot in this. Since this ship does not suffer from any lack of turret rotation, it's very easy to switch sides without really hampering your ability to engage targets, because they just come around so quickly. It's not a huge problem. We're going to go to C. Both of our destroyers are going to B. At least the destroyers that started on this side. The other ones are going to A. And B actually ends up being a bit of a hotspot on this map, which is rare, in this match, but it ends up, that's kind of rare for this map. Usually you don't see people crashing into B except for the destroyers at the beginning of the game, and whoever gets it kind of holds it for the whole thing. And then everybody ends up fighting over it, because usually one side pushes the other side out of either A or C. I personally, B would be a fun place to go if it wasn't open on, two sides to accept incoming fire from. But we're going to start off, by engaging this destroyer that popped up real briefly there. And, well, get a shell hit, but nope, 1,000 damage. Woo! Exciting. One other thing that I've noticed frequently happening now is that you'll start to see cruisers and destroyers come through that gap there. So we're going to launch torpedoes there just in case somebody happens to try and come through there while we go around to the east side of this island. Now there is a destroyer in here, so we pull up our hydro. My hope is that I can convince him to get off the cap. And as we're going to find out, it does actually work. He does decide to bail on the cap. And unlike most other matches, there isn't a whole lot that goes on to the east of C. In fact, most of it happens right around B, which is why I said this is kind of an odd map. And there you can see the hydro range detect as 5K, 4.92 for ships, like 3-something for, there's a turret traverse again, 3-something for the detection of torpedoes. Now, the other nice thing is that these ships do have a very, very good detection range, so we are going to go ahead and we're going to stealth up. I was hoping that my teammates would spot this Missouri for me so I could continue to pelt him, but Missouri has much better stealth than many people give it credit for. At 12.2 kilometers with a full-on stealth build, it's just unbelievable for a battleship. A Tier 9 battleship, of all things, and a battleship the size of Missouri. Now, I don't know what actually is... You'll see that we just got detected by radar or hydro. I don't know what it is that's detecting me. But either way, I'm broadside to a battleship that's bad. Of course, our goal of pushing their DD off the cap did succeed. We do have cap now, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to bail on this. We're going to put this giant island up there in front of us if we can. And one salvo takes off 4,500 hit points. It's kind of annoying. I'm assuming that that's probably a Tirpitz or something else. Those shell splashes looked way too big to be anything cruiser size, certainly not destroyer sized. So I'm assuming something there had radar. I don't know what it is, to be honest with you. And I still don't. After watching this video a bunch of times, I still don't. Anyway, we got Tirpitz coming into B. Again, not my ideal direction that I would take a battleship unless I absolutely had to. We'll throw some torpedoes down into there and see what happens. Of course, there is a Baltimore. That ship definitely does have radar. Oh, Kutuzov. Much more interesting target to shoot at. The Kutuzov has much softer armor. He's broadside to me. That Baltimore was too, but the Kutuzov was a little bit closer and a lot easier to citadel. Those torpedoes are looking pretty good. We're going to go ahead and we're going to start engaging this Tirpitz. And if you've seen some of my other videos, you'll note that I've gotten used to shooting at targets based off of their, where ships usually are relative to their name tag. And I've been called, in fact, I did it in a Baltimore and I got called a hacker. I thought it was because I did, 108,000 damage in a Baltimore, which is unbelievable in and of itself. But as you can see here, we're just going to go ahead and we're going to engage this Tirpitz, and he's going to shoot at us. Turn away. Yikes. 7,600 hit points just melted, gone. Woof. It's alright, you know, it's part of the flavor for the Royal Navy cruiser line to be overly squishy, and I really hope the battleship line isn't this squishy, because Warspite is kind of that squishy. But the rain just keeps on falling on him. We got a different target. We'll shoot at the Zhao now. And the Zhao is much further away. And you can see the shell arcs aren't exactly spectacular. This is one of the reasons why this ship has, you know, taken the range module on this ship. Yeah, you've got a much larger stealth fire window. That might work if you're peppering ships that are stationary, but when it comes to shooting at other ships like cruisers and stuff, it's very difficult to do any real damage to them at range. It's simply too much lead time. It's possible, but I don't recommend it. So now that we've kind of run out of targets, we're going to dive on back towards sea. We've got a Baltimore over there. I'd like to get in a fight with that Baltimore and show him what's up. While we go chase after him, we are going to go ahead and continue to fire on the Zhao. And this Missouri is now crossing the gap. Broadside, nonetheless. We'll fire at him now. And that's one of the nice parts about this ship is that because your turret traverse is so good, you do have the ability to just, you know, turn on the fly and engage targets at will with no real penalty, I might add. There's just no penalty to doing so. And, well, now we're out of targets. That Cyclone has started. Okay, Katusav. He's at range. We are going to engage him. It looks like he's slowing down to me. We'll adjust. No, okay, maybe not. And eventually we're going to start landing some hits. There we go. Yeah, not a whole lot of damage from these large ranges, so let's get a little bit more aggressive with this. Mr. Domskoy, I don't want to launch these torps behind you and make you slam on the brakes, but don't make me. Again, traversing those turrets, just not a big issue with these. The lead times, getting used to those lead times is something that definitely takes getting used to. Now that the Domskoy has taken over the whole left side of this channel, I can go ahead and I can put some torpedoes down there. Hopefully we'll catch this Missouri off guard. Of course, we're going to engage this Baltimore first. I was hoping he would come around my way, so open himself up a little bit more. Well, whatever. And no torpedoes yet. We're going to hold off on those. Domskoy is really in the way. We don't want to launch those torpedoes and suddenly have him turn into them. And we don't know exactly where the Missouri is. Got a Boska here. Battle cruiser operational. That's what that ship reminds me of. Every time I see one, that's what I think. Bring back the StarCraft days. Missouri pops his radar, and in a cyclone, that increase in his spotting range actually does help him out quite a bit. And it's not a bad tactic at all. Now, I originally popped smoke here, which was originally for me to use. And then I realized there's not really much in the way of targets here, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to power on up full again. And we're going to go around the north side of this island. We've got a lone ship up there, a battleship, which we are going to need if we plan on winning this fight. I'm shooting blindly there into the smoke. Now we're going to launch torpedoes. My whole goal with shooting blindly into the smoke with the reload time of this, the hit rate doesn't really matter. But if I can figure out where he's at and see if maybe he's moving, I might be able to engage him more successfully. Well, since we can't find him, we'll launch our torpedoes anyway, just in case he decides to come out. Again, still blind firing. You'd be surprised at how many hits you'll get by just blind firing, whether it's into smoke or whether it's into cyclones like this. I've gotten some pretty big hits on ships, luckily, I might add, that I would not have gotten had I not taken the shot to begin with. So blind firing, especially when you've got a 2.8 second reload time on your 6-inch guns, that can pay off in damage numbers. And this game, like I said, it starts off real slow, and it's not my best game in this ship by a long shot. I've had games that are much higher than this, but I really wanted to show, just we're starting to get to the point where the ship gets into its element. And this Amagi is up here by himself. He's facing off against the torpedoes, which he just now is able to see. And there's a Yamato hiding somewhere up here as well. And I'm waiting for him to pop up because I know he's going to get there. Okay, so we're detected. He's now detected. And we are going to go ahead and engage him. It's these close-range engagements, which is where the Minotaur really starts to shine. You've got a huge rate of fire advantage. You've got 10k torpedoes that move relatively quickly. It's just, this is the strong suit for these ships. The downside to this is tunnel vision. Go ahead and see if we can't put some rounds on the Zao and maybe finish him off, but no. He's too far behind the island. We'll continue to engage the turbines and help our Amagi out. Watch how quickly, I mean, he's on fire, so that doesn't help the situation any. But look at how quickly these damage numbers start to add up. And the rate of fire just, it makes these consistent damage numbers just even more terrifying to be on the receiving end of. Yep. Look at how quick they add up. Alright, so he's down. Unfortunately, that Amagi's going to eat a torpedo that the torpedoes launch. The torpedoes. Torpedoes is the original nickname for that ship a long time ago. The Zao, he's going to pop up. Come on. Well, when he does, we're going to go ahead and we're going to engage him. Okay, we're detected, so that means he's up. Yep. And now look at the mini-map. As I'm engaging him, look what pops up. Continue to engage the Zao. He's now dead, but look at the mini-map. Oh god, what is that? Battleship? That can only be one battleship. Oh! Not what you want to see in a Royal Navy cruiser. Turn in. Oh! Relatively big hit, but on you think about this, what other cruiser could have taken that hit? It certainly wouldn't have been a U.S. cruiser, because the U.S. cruisers would have taken that hit and it would have gone through and through. But watch his hit point pool. We're turning in, we're trying to, well, I tried to smoke there, thinking, well, I'll get him with my torps, but of course, smoke bug, so get to moving. But look at how quick his hit points are disappearing. Name me one cruiser that can DPM a Yamato down that quickly. Oh, there I used the sinking ship to help block some of the incoming fire, much to his frustration. We're up to 3 kills and 85,551 damage at this point. Oop, torpedoes in from an unknown source. It's going to either be a destroyer or a cruiser. Well, either way you look at it, we're going to launch torps into B, and as I launch them I realize, oh god, my teammate is right there. We want to make sure that we definitely tell him to stop and make sure he's well aware that he needs to stop, as we continue on to go cap A and hopefully win this. Now, unbeknownst to me, there is a Zao lingering around here, and this is that fight that I was talking about at the beginning of this video. He's got his scout plane up. That definitely tells me he's still off to the left somewhere. Shoot it down, because reasons. The lack of defensive fire is not a huge concern on this thing. As you can see there, just... Oh, okay, so the Zao's up. Starting at just over half his hit points. First salvo. Look at these damage rolls as they come up. I mean, 5k. There's 11k, almost 12k. Yeah, 4 or 5 salvos, and that Zao went from half health to no health. And the other nice part about Minotaur is slamming on the brakes is a thing. You can slam on your brakes and the ship loses speed really quickly. But look at that DPS, just how quickly a tier 10 cruiser like the Zao, which has trollish armor to begin with, just disappears. And even if he would have angled to me, or came out angled, it really wouldn't have changed the equation that much because of those favorable auto bounce angles and the short fuse times on the shells would have just allowed those damage rolls to tack up. And yeah, I mean, if he caught me broadside with AP, I'd probably gone poof, but you know, he didn't. I was nosed into him. I was expecting ships to come from relative location. And, you know, this kind of ends up being the end of the battle. I was really hoping we'd find this last destroyer and I'd be able to get cracking, but ultimately, video shows exactly what I wanted it to show. It shows that DPM, just the raw damage that this ship can do. If it is a broadside to you and it's at relatively close range, it will literally melt. You will watch the hit point pool just disintegrate like crazy. And that's completely ignoring torpedo damage. That is just purely shell damage. And it's just insane that a ship like this managed to make it to tier 10 in its condition as it is. Can you imagine the ship with fire if it had HE? Oh my goodness. Like, it would be the most ridiculous tier 10 cruiser you could possibly ever have, because you would just perpetually start all the things on fire. Now, I'm not complaining. I think that that would be a good thing for the tier 10 meta to have, is a ship with really high rate of fire with a HE spam, but Wargaming didn't want that, so we got AP only. Not that I'm complaining. This ship is an absolute riot to play. It's very maneuverable. It has the high rate of fire. The turrets traverse really well. You've got good torpedo arcs. You've got smoke. You've got hydro. You've got a good solid heel. There's really little downsides to this ship aside from how soft it is. And that's not to say that in the making of this video, I didn't happen to come across several battles where I get into the battle, I do 25,000 damage, and get deleted by, you know, North Carolina shooting at me from 18K that gets a lucky dev strike on me. It happens. But overwhelmingly on maps with good cover and islands, it is very difficult to not do well in these ships, especially when you've got lots of island cover and a cyclone to cover your approach to enemy ships. It is just an absolute riot to play this ship. The damage numbers, you know, they don't seem real high, but then you got to keep in mind shells are landing every 2.8 seconds. And 2.8 seconds every, you know, 3,000 damage or 1,200 damage, that all adds up really quickly. And there's nothing to lose by just holding down the left mouse button or just spamming the left mouse button, because you're not paying for those ammo costs anymore. But overall, I do really enjoy this ship. It is a lot of fun. It is worth the grind up all through that tier 2 to tier 5 zone where these ships are just so bland and boring. And then once you hit tier 6 and 7, enduring the greatness that is Fiji, and tier 8 and 9 aren't bad either. So the final end of the battle, 104,886 damage, 4 sinks. You can see there our base XP is 1895. No secondary hits, only 3,749 damage with that one torpedo. So almost all that damage was done by gunnery. And there's the credit screen. Anyway, like I said before, I really do enjoy the ship. It was totally worth the grind. And just to give you guys a heads up of what's coming next, it's going to be the Japanese destroyer line and the US cruiser line will be the next 2 lines that I do. Anyway, I'm your Peacekeeper. Like, comment, subscribe, and thank you for watching.